Hey everyone, John Hendrix here, Boot Crew Media, coming at you with an episode of The Drive. That's right, I think we've kind of toyed around with the show's name a little bit, trying to get our things up here, but I think we've settled on The Drive, presented by Royal Honda, New Orleans. So, listen, kind of quiet this week, sort of, not really, right? But a few things that we want to kind of touch on with this episode of the Saints is, first one is Odell Beckham Jr. I think that's the big thing right now is, should New Orleans look his way, right? And I think the few things that you want to look at for this, because obviously you see Jarvis Landry kind of recruiting him a little bit. You got Tyrann Mathieu in here. Darell Williams is coming in New Orleans and stuff. More on that in a few. But should the team look at Odell Beckham Jr.? So here's a couple things that I would say, first of all, that you got to remember. So he's coming off of a Super Bowl win, right? And he got hurt in that game. He tore his ACL. So being at as kind of February, had surgery in March, he's probably not going to be on the field till November. I'd say probably best case. So any team that looks his way, you got to remember that, right? And so, again, I think the Saints should be obviously interested in it, but I don't think they're going to be the only ones. Colts are going to be interested. The Packers need some people for Aaron Rodgers. Those are two other teams that you would look at. Would it work? I think is the other question, because you have Michael Thomas already. You have Chris Olave. Then you have obviously Jarvis Landry. So some people are already talking, oh, that's a lot of mouths to feed and all that good stuff. Look, I'm going to tell you, these guys aren't going to care if you're winning games and, you're getting this team to a Super Bowl. That's another thing that I would think of. So look at the depth behind. I think this is all the biggest thing. And this is something I've talked about since the draft. And the reason why it's like, okay, you got to draft 2 wide receivers, right? Because you got to push this depth chart. And look, Marquez Callaway, Deontay Hardy, Traquan Smith, those are you guys that are, pretty much 4, 5, and 6 on the roster right now. And, guys behind them, we'll see if they'll be able to do anything in training camp to push. But, think about this. If you're in a situation where you want to go to somebody like Smith or Hardy or Callaway and you need to get to move the sticks in an important role, is it somebody like that, or is it Odell Beckham Jr., right? And so, again, I think it's interesting. I don't think you say that, it just doesn't work or it's just whatever the case may be. I was one of those people last year. The Saints wide receiver group was just not good, right? The depth, let's call it for what it is. It sucked, right? I mean, you're throwing passes to Kevin White and Kenny Stills and Little Jordan Humphrey, which, I mean, it's great because these guys have great stories. And, again, it's nothing against these guys. But when you look at it and you stack them up to teams like Dallas, who had 3 deep plus 4 or 5, their guys were good enough to be probably 2 or 3 on the Saints. That's tough. And so, again, you got to be happy about where the Saints have moved as far as getting better depth on this team, right? And again, it's going to let Jameis Winston cook. And, I'm more concerned probably about tight end group than I am about offensive line or even running back. And so kind of segues into the next thing is Darell Williams being in New Orleans. Look, I'll tell you this, that, haven't heard anything back about if it was an official visit. Got to remember his agents and some of his player representation is in New Orleans. So could just be a routine visit, but obviously it sparks a little bit of intrigue and interest. So we got a ways to wait on that, right? But, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara are probably the 2 solid options on here. Abram Smith is out of Baylor. Their undrafted guy is going to be really interesting to watch. I think he could push Tony Jones Jr. I think he could push Dwayne Washington. And look, I tell you, those 2 guys, I'm not so sure they make the roster, right? And again, it's nothing against them, but I think the Saints, when they look at some of their options, it wouldn't surprise me if Smith pushes one of these guys off the roster because of his upside at special teams, and obviously has a background as a linebacker, so it kind of bodes well for him. And so, not saying the other guys can't do well, but I think it kind of gives him an upper leg, if you will, on this competition. And, look, I would say that even when people do, and I'm guilty of it too, but you put these early 53-man roster predictions out, right? And trust me, another one's coming or one's coming here. And so there's always those players that just fall off. Like you make the squad or you don't make the squad, and then they say, oh, the Bears released somebody that was high up on their pro scouting department for the Saints, that is, and they go take them instead. And this guy just may find his way on the practice squad. So always got to look at that as far as roster movement. But, Darell Williams, there's still room to improve in that backfield. And obviously that's something to pay attention to. The other things that, kind of happened this week that, pay attention is you got the 3rd preseason game announced. That's going to be a home one against the Chargers. So that's, I think, August 27th at 7 p.m. in the Superdome. They have the 13th, which is against the Texans. That's their opener in preseason at Houston. And then that second week, we're still waiting on details on what's when that's going to be announced, because they are going to do joint practices with the Packers. So something to stay tuned. And obviously we'll be up there and kind of giving you some behind the scenes reports and such from Green Bay and such. But so things are kind of shaping up, but right now this is kind of a lull period in the season schedule. You are going to get OTAs next week, so we'll have hopefully some access. Depends on what they do give us, and you have OTAs for a few weeks, and then you're going to have the mandatory mini camp, veteran mini camp, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of cool stuff that is coming down the pipeline as far as the Saints go. But look, right now just kind of a holding pattern. I know it's exciting. It's May, into May. You got the kind of the rookie symposium thing that's going on right now too. But right now it's kind of debate central. It's like, where can this team improve on? What can they get better at? Where are the question marks that we have going into training camp? One of the other things to talk about is Jameis Winston, right? And I think that, obviously he's doing great in the rehab progress, right? And the Saints, it was reported that they're going to be somewhat cautious, and that's not surprising. I mean, again, he's going to be the guy, right? And so I think that's pretty common knowledge. But again, I think by training camp he'll be ready to go full on. But it'll be interesting when we do watch OTAs and see some of this stuff and get to talk to him. He says he's ready. I believe him, right? And I know he's hungry. But what kind of workload he does have and such. But man, this is a time to be really excited about the Saints. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, a lot of things to look forward to. As always, tune to Boot Crew Media. A lot of great coverage there, and we'll be able to talk more about Saints as we go about. And guys, again, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, help us grow a good bit, because there's a lot of awesome things coming that you guys just don't know about. But appreciate it as always. I'm John Hendrix from Boot Crew Media. Thanks.